Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 939. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today's October 28th, 2025.
All right, welcome to another episode of Anglican Unscripted. We've done this for 939 episodes. That's crazy. We've done this since, I think, 2009, and we're still here. Before we get too far into the program, please like, subscribe, share, and go to the comment section if you want to leave a comment. Last episode, GAFCON nukes the communion, a well-received episode. Second only to episode where we talked about the new Archbishop of Canterbury, Sarah Mullally. So
it even beat out the Justin Bieber special.
It did, you know, or the stuff we did with Calvin Robinson. So yeah, the episodes and the audience keeps growing. If you're new here, I'm Kevin and this is George. And for about 15, 20 years, we sat down in front of our little webcams and our little computers, and we talk about interesting things that's happening in the Anglican Communion. George is a priest in Lucanto, Florida. I am a semi-retired IT professional, business owner, living in an RV in Solomon, Maryland. And so this is what we do. We find it fun. We also talk about the weather. Cloudy today in Maryland, George. What's it like down there?
Well, we got this cold front coming from the north, so it was raining for a few days, and some places near your old stomping grounds, Webster, Florida, Mount Dora had 15 inches of rain in one day.
That's crazy.
There's flooding in the central lakes region of Florida. Mm-hmm. And we've got this hurricane coming up from the north. It'll break up over the mountains of Jamaica. But I just got back from a cruise. We took a parish cruise, 38 cabins, booked by members of the congregation as a fundraiser for the parish. And we were to stop in Grand Cayman, but the ship was rerouted to the Mexican coast, Yucatan and whatnot, because of the hurricane. And so we're getting rain in the outer bands of squalls. So one coming north, one coming south. So overcast and rainy down here in Florida.
All right, George, let's move on to the news. I got the show notes up. You want to talk first about Bishop Derek Jones. A presentment was filed 2 weeks ago accusing Bishop Jones of misconduct. Number one was spiritual bullying. Number two, financial misconduct. How does that play out, George?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, a complaint was filed with the Anglican Church in North America against Bishop Derek Jones, the bishop of the jurisdiction of the Armed Forces and Chaplaincy. And the allegations are that he engaged in a pattern of fraud, abuse, lying, conduct unbecoming a member of the clergy, as well as spiritual bullying and emotional bullying. We've had detailed reports from some of his alleged victims, and these poor fellas, they are suffering. Something happened. It's hard to understand or to, if you're not in the victim's shoes, to see how angry they are, how hurt they are. Evidently, these allegations were brought to the ACNA's office, Archbishop Foley Beach, beginning in 2022, I think, was it? 2021?
Well, yeah, it's 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago is when the first allegations were brought to Foley's office.
Single allegation was brought, and it was passed from Foley Beach to Ray Sutton, and Ray Sutton then passed it to Derek Jones to respond to this. Mm-hmm. And Jones's response was extraordinary, which was to essentially, the claimant says, to destroy the person making the allegation.
That's the accusation.
That's the accusation. And then other people began to come forward, filing complaints. And Archbishop Beach is accused of doing nothing, sitting on them. And his staff at the time said, look, you've got to address these things. And at a certain point, Archbishop Beach said, well, we'll let the next archbishop handle it. And so the whole thing was basically shelved for several months. And we've seen copies of emails asking, what is the status? No change, no change, no change, no change, going over months of time. Okay, it gets handed to Archbishop Wood. Archbishop Wood, at a certain time, says, okay, we need to jump forward. We need to go forward with this. Some people have said it's because the canons for discipline were changed. Well, that may be true, maybe not true, but it's an excuse. And so the ball started rolling, finally culminating in this presentment. And it's extraordinary, the claims being made. I mean, it's so fantastical, it's hard to believe. I hate to put it that way.
Well, you and I are in a forum with several chaplains who have documents and accusations that they're making, and reading some of those, it is fantastical. I would say, that this certainly needs to be investigated, and if true, wow.
Well, I'll give it one example of the sort of Bishop Jones is painted as a petty and vindictive tyrant in these accusations.
Yes.
For an example, the person making the original complaint, going back, Jones sought to destroy by having him kicked out of the chaplaincy of the military, by accusing him of all sort of various sins, blackening his reputation among civilian employees, just going out of his way to ruin this guy's life. So that at this stage, the guy's pretty squirrely. I mean, he feels like, that
paranoid.
We're paranoid. Yeah. This is a bishop of a Christian church behaving this way. Mm-hmm. And the action is described is that of a low-level mafia chieftain, not of a bishop. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to believe. It's because it's like when you first get introduced to the Catholic clergy abuse scandals, reading about little rings of pedophile priests. You think this is cuckoo land stuff. How could something like this happen? These are priests. These are men who have given their lives to God. Well, it turned out to be true. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying because that's true, the accusations against Jones are true, but we've contacted Bishop Jones's attorneys for comments. They've not responded. The ACNA has neither confirmed nor denied that a presentment has been filed. But we've seen so much of the background documentation. At this stage, the bigger issue is a pastoral one. Jones has essentially shot himself in the head as far as the ACNA is concerned. He sued them. He's no longer the bishop of the jurisdiction in the ACNA.
He's no longer the endorser.
He's no longer the endorser. The military is unlikely to keep someone as an endorser who has no... The military's regulations are that you have to have a church to which you're endorsing from, and that has to include civilian parishes. Well, Jones can't have civilian parishes because it's a jurisdiction of the armed forces.
Now, somebody sent us an email. There's some technicalities in there where they allow some organizations to do it, but in general, you need to be part of a denomination to be an endorser. So. And
Jones's behavior has caught the attention of the brass at the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. And, with the axe falling on so many people at the Pentagon to clean up their act, it's not a stretch to say we need to get rid of this guy. No, that's just my opinion. Sure. So, the Board of Inquiry into these accusations of bullying, of abuse, of financial misconduct, of lying, of all these irregularities, it's beginning this week. It's starting to meet. We're told. The ACNA will neither confirm nor deny this. It's going to take a while to get through all this.
It will. And that's what we said. This is a 3-month story when we first started reporting it. We also said it's going to be a repeat of what happened with the EMEA and Chuck Murphy. That type of pattern that happens here. And I think that's playing out here. It's maybe a little faster than it did with the EMEA because of how many chaplains have already decided they want to stay with the ACNA. But
the degree of animosity is the same as we experienced, was that 15 years ago? Was that when it was?
Kevin and George, you're growing horns on your heads. You're the evil people. Yeah, I mean,
we had one of in the comments from the last episode. We had one of Jones's suffragans just lose it over us, and I hadn't seen that degree of abuse and vitriol since the Chuck Murphy days, and I don't know the fellow making the accusations. But from my perspective, here's a fellow living through cognitive dissonance. Reality is not matching his world.
In our opinion.
He is responding with anger and unfortunate things to say. Yeah. So this is one of three current cases of episcopal misconduct in the ACNA. And this is not, I hate to say it, a simple case like the Great Lakes Diocese bishop who had trouble with pornography, personal failings like that.
Sure, yeah.
This is an organized criminal enterprise, it seems to me.
In your opinion, yes.
And if the ACNA doesn't clean up their act, here's the thing. ACNA is one of the founders of this new global Anglican Communion. Mm-hmm. And the global Anglican Communion is setting itself as its stand on Scripture. Tradition, reason, as interpreted by Scripture. It's not a communion based on canons or documents or treaties. And what Jones has created, according to these accusations, is a papal empire that does not withstand the scrutiny of Scripture by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. And if the ACNA is going to be part of this global Anglican Communion, it's going to have to clean up its own internal act and get its bishops in line. Because right now, they have a quasi-Roman Catholic papal system of the people just pay and pray and pay. They don't really have a synodical form of government. There's been excellent articles in the last few days about here's how the ACNA needs to reform itself to be, able to act and move forward. But this takes us into the next story.
It does. Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah, the next story. George, you're famous now. A paper you used to write for has quoted you. In fact, now a paper that I also quoted Kevin, the Washington Post. Kevin Kallsen is now a searchable name in the Washington Post.
Were you were in the basketball bribe scandal, betting scandal?
No, not with the NBA. No. Nor am I stopping the government from reopening because I won't vote for a clean CR. One of the big stories. Nor am I flying over to Japan and making new treaties with them. George, I'm famous because I said something on this show about the ACNA that was a great quote. And the author of this article, Ian Shapiro. Ian, sorry.
Ian. Think of Young Frankenstein, not Igor, but Igor.
Okay. Ian Shapiro wrote about it, and it is a great quote. And he quoted you as well, George.
Yeah. Actually, they're pretty nice to us because they put us down at the end as comments so as to steer the direction the author wanted it to go.
Sure.
So when you write a newspaper article and you see that sort of thing at the bottom, you're hearing what the author wants you to take away.
Which is
so
good.
We're not fact witnesses. We're basically helping explain it to you people is how those newspaper articles are structured.
We are context.
So what article are we talking about? An expose on the Archbishop of the ACNA, Steve Wood, which led with allegations of sexual misconduct. On October 21st, the ACNA confirmed that a presentment had been filed against Archbishop Steve Wood. And 2 days later, the Washington Post story hit. They've been working on this for a long time.
Probably a year.
The meat of the story surrounds a woman named Claire Buxton. She had been head of the children's program at St. Andrew's Church in Mount Pleasant, the cathedral church where Steve Wood is still the rector, as well as being bishop and archbishop. He's kept all three hats. He wears three hats. In April of 2024, Wood, Ms. Buxton says, placed his hand on the back of her head and attempted to kiss her in his office after a conversation about a church mission trip to the Bahamas. Buxton described feeling shocked and immediately recounted this to a colleague in the office. So there is a contemporaneous report on this. This is not like the Anita Hill or
Kathy Ford,
Bailey Ford, where 30 years ago somebody did this to me and I'm only just remembering it now, or I didn't tell anybody then. No, at the time there was a report to a friend about this going on. And over 13 months, Wood allegedly gave Buxton unexpected payments totaling $3,500 from his discretionary fund. Now, she's a divorced mother of three, and she needed the money. But having worked in the church, she knew that's not what you use discretionary funds for.
What are they for, George? What are they for?
Discretionary funds they're not for paying off people whom you have sexually abused, okay? They are to help the needy, the homeless, to buy a bus ticket for somebody to go back home, to send kids to summer camp. I mean, they cannot have any link back to yourself. It's not money that you can spend on yourself. Rather, it's money to advance the ministry. And small gift here or there to a member of staff, that's not a problem. $3,500, that's a problem.
Have you ever, you're a priest and you have a discretionary, have you ever given cash to anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right,
yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I give cash because, hobos don't.
They don't. Yeah.
They don't have checking accounts. And, hey, I need $20 for gas, or I need, and, I write it down. Gave $20 to a transient who was knocking on my window door. Could he get something to eat? Or I buy gift cards for the Wawa down the road here for they get something. In other words, but these are small items that my senior warden, and in our case, my senior warden and the bookkeeper, they go over it and they audit these accounts to make sure that I'm following the guidelines. Now, we're going on a bit longer about this because discretionary fund accounts are things that are famous in the Episcopal Church for getting people into trouble. Michael, the actor, Matthew Broderick, his sister was an Episcopal priest in New York City. And there was a huge stinking scandal because she was using discretionary funds to pay for kids' tuition. Don Armstrong out at Grace and St. Stephen's in Colorado Springs, there's a huge ruckus about his use of discretionary funds. It's one of the reasons it was the public reason the diocese went after him, even though the private reason was he was a pain in the ass. But this is this is foolishness. And then let me continue.
Sure.
Other incidents that Buxton described in the presentment were a sensual hug in 21, that Wood would gossip about others' affairs, calling her Claire Bear, offering a luxury resort stay, and intrusive behavior during the Bahamas mission trip, including feeding her with a fork. Buxton resigned in June 2024. So after his election as Archbishop, said she was devastated for that the bishops of the ACNA didn't vet Wood before they allowed him to run for office. Now, you could say, okay, this is he said, she said. Well, the presentment is supported by affidavits from 6 former colleagues, including priests, who also accused Wood of bullying, demeaning staff, bragging about potential affairs, using his discretionary funds improperly, and violating ordination vows, bringing scandal and offense to his office. One of the people, I think Robert Sturdy's his last name. I think his last name. He was one of the candidates to stand for Bishop of South Carolina. Chip Edgar won that election. He's the chaplain at the Citadel. These are serious people bringing these charges. These aren't, the perpetual cranks that, every church organization is going to have.
Every diocese has a crank, yes.
Yeah. No, these are serious people, and they brought these charges. Now, Wood released a letter to the St. Andrew's congregation that was shared by the senior warden, and we posted all this stuff on Anglican Inc., where he denies the sexual misconduct charges, but he was silent about the money and the bullying. But then the ACNA, through the ACNA's press office, Wood issued a general denial of all charges, saying he was confident that he would be acquitted. And of course, you're innocent and proven guilty in an adversarial court proceeding.
Absolutely.
But here's one of the problems. The ACNA has decided we're no longer having adversarial court proceedings. We're going to have proceedings that are based upon reconciliation and
conciliar.
We're going to have everybody happy at the end of the day. Well, the accusation is that this approach covers up bad clergy behavior. In this case, I asked the ACNA Archbishop's office, can you confirm that a presentment has been made against Archbishop Wood? When was it made, and who made it? And they answered. 2 days later, I asked the same question of them about Derek Jones. Has it been made? When was it made? Who made it? And their response was, well, the canons say we cannot disclose this information because it's a confidential process. Now, I didn't fight with them because, by pointing out to them that, so essentially you're telling me that you enforce the canons when it's convenient or it's in your favor. You ignore the canons when it's not. It's not how it's supposed to work, Kevin. It's either, you either do it or you don't. You don't do it this time, but not that time. And you and I have heard rumors of more complaints coming down the pike against Steve Wood. I've talked to people at GAFCON, not Paul Donison. And GAFCON is not getting involved. Some people are thinking, well, maybe we have a white knight riding in on a horse, great big horse, to sort of save the day for us. That's not going to be GAFCON. You're not going to see Henry Ndekuba or Peter Jensen or Peter Akinola or any of those guys saying anything or doing anything. But behind the scenes, like I had an email from an archbishop, somebody we've dealt with in the past, Kevin, who said, so what's going on? And I basically said, here's the Washington Post article. Here's what I know in addition. And he said, thank you. Now, I know this guy. He's not going to call me again because he's going to move in concert with the other archbishops behind the scenes, because that's the African way. They don't fight through the press the way American politicians do. So that if this goes much further, the GAFCON primates are probably going to begin putting pressure on Wood to step aside, or at least have a caretaker archbishop until this is resolved up or down.
Well, that's my question is, when you have a presentment against a bishop or an archbishop, does somebody else automatically get control? Does the dean of the province, Ray Sutton, is he now in charge? I don't think that's highlighted anywhere in any news story or press release, what happens when there's a presentment against an archbishop. I would like to know that.
And here I'm just guessing, but the way the system would be set right now is if you let any presentment trigger a suspension. As we said, there's so many cranks out there. Yeah. Oh, you're the archbishop of a province that allows women clergy, therefore I'm presenting you from violating God's law. Mm-hmm. Does that mean you have to step down? So that's why the Board of Inquiry has to go through this to see, is this serious? And if it is serious, then we go to trial. And that's what happened with Ruch, Stuart Ruch. that once the Board of Inquiry found there was cause, then he had to step aside, and then they put in the assistant bishops to sort of oversee the diocese until such time as the thing was adjudicated.
So, is this the end of the ACNA? Is it all over? Oh, they had a great run for 20 years. No, the whole was greater than the sum here, George. The parishes are strong. I know this because I have been going to my church in Accokeek for a year, completely under the radar. Nobody knew me from anybody. Just Kevin and Jill attending church. That changed with the Steve Wood story in the Washington Post. All of a sudden, my name popped up in the Washington Post. He goes to church here. How did he get quoted? And on Sunday, I talked to 4 different people who watched the episode, and I'm like, this is bigger than the 8,000 core Anglican viewers. This is everybody wants to know, why is the Archbishop of the ACNA being accused of sexual misconduct and bullying? This isn't there's a gnat going on here. This isn't Stuart Ruch. This isn't Jones. This is something bigger, George.
Yeah, and I think the point that I want to make is that Peter Frank had an article that he printed on his parish website that we reprinted. He notified. Peter Frank was the former communications director for the Anglican Communion Network, Diocese of Pittsburgh, then the beginning one for the ACNA, and he's been a parish director for, 10 years.
Yeah, he got to walk away.
Yeah. And he wrote an article basically saying, there's a lot of heavy breathing right now, but it's not over. And it's just part of the give and take of the Christian life, that each churches are made up of fallen, broken, sinful people, and you will have these problems. And the people would joke about the Episcopal Church canon law books are volumes and volumes and volumes, and here's this slim little volume from the ACNA. Well, now you know why these churches, these Episcopal churches, had 300 years of bad bishops and bad clergy and stupid decisions and rules to try to deal with it, and they still don't do it right, even though they try. So the ACNA has to develop a degree of jurisprudence. But there are also some articles that have come out, one by a fellow named Will Kallsen, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, who basically said, look, we need to really try to come back to our Anglican sense that we're a synodical church. We're not just a bishop's operation with the people just pay and pray. We meet and gather together in synod as clergy, bishops, lay people. And we need to, one of the failings of the Episcopal Church is that at its formation, John Marshall, the first Chief Justice of the United States of America, wrote much of the Constitution canons of the Episcopal Church. And one of the things that they wanted to have was an independent judiciary, to have a checks and balances. Well, they didn't do it. So they just had General Convention of the bishops, and there was no checks and balances against each other. No judiciary who was independent. And the ACNA, instead of having an independent judiciary, has made the bishops, by and large, the judiciary. And the bishops have not done a good job of governing themselves.
It looked like they had a good start. We had 2 bishops that were presented and defrocked. That went well. We seem to hold, each diocese is different, but from what I've read, most dioceses are holding priests accountable for sexual misconduct and other things that. So I have no complaints there. My biggest complaint is the pendulum that was a reaction to, we don't want to be tech in our canons, and heading in a 1 or 2 page Title IV as our canons. That just doesn't do it.
So this is an opportunity. I'm moving past Peter Frank's argument into the Will Kallsen argument. These scandals, and they are scandals, is an opportunity for the church to recenter itself and create a foundation for long-term growth that allows itself to be an adequate expression of the Christian faith as expressed in the Anglican way. Now, I hate to say this because this opens a whole nother can of worms, is the dual integrities issue of women clergy, yes or no. That is I think that has been a wedge that has allowed bad behavior. Well, none of these have to do with women clergy, George. No, but the ability to have a here and not there. The ability to say, okay, I'm in a diocese, that there are 5 dioceses in the Carolinas. Steve Woods Cathedral is 15 miles from Chip Edgar's Cathedral in Charleston, Mount Pleasant to Charleston. This multiplication of jurisdictions, this non-recognition of clergy orders is preventing. It kept the ACNA together at a certain point, but has that point been reached? Now, I'm not advocating for it or against it, but at a certain point, they're going to have to say which way are they going, in or out.
One of the problems they have when they choose a new archbishop is they have to pick somebody who's going to be the status quo. Who here amongst us, and maybe there's 15 bishops who won't change the status quo, those are the only people we're going to choose from. We can't pick an ultra Anglo-Catholic because he would change the status quo. We can't pick a ultra liberal evangelical because he would change the status quo. So we only have 10 or 15 bishops we can choose from to be the next archbishop. And that's very limiting in choosing the next leader of the ACNA.
Yeah, and so at a certain point, they're going to have to grab the bull by the horns on women's orders, on multiple. There are too many bishops, too many dioceses, too many bishops for the ACNA, and reorganize and redraft themselves so that there's a degree of uniformity. There doesn't need to be a unanimity in all things, but there should be uniformity in standards so that you have a real alleged SOB bishop in the diocese of the jurisdiction of the armed forces, and then we just hear wonderful things like, I'll just mention Chip Edgar, some of the we've just mentioned just before. In other words, that degree of scope is really hard to keep an organization afloat for the long term.
No, yeah. Well, let's just. This is not the end of the ACNA. This is a scar that will heal. But it's also something that's very needed. We need to have transparency. We need to have accountability for our bishops and archbishops. Nobody's above the law. And the ACNA will have a strident future by conducting itself very openly when it has its trials. And I think one of the trouble, we don't want anybody to lose face in this stuff. I understand that, but there's a trial.
Well, let me just add my 2 cents back on Wood.
Sure.
If all that is out there that Wood was a real bastard boss, that's not ground. No, we're speaking hypothetically.
Yeah.
If he was just a bully and a bastard of a boss, mega church leaders are all like that.
Yeah.
They're not sweet and kind and loving pastoral people. That's just the DNA of those sorts of churches. Then that's not grounds for resentment. That's a grounds for just be nice to your people, say thank you and please. The sex stuff is different. If there's any truth to these sexual misconduct allegations, out he goes. I mean, it's that stark. And that's why I think Wood realizes that, and that's why he was so adamant in denying, well, maybe he's just stating the truth, but he has to defeat any of the sex accusations.
Absolutely. I mean, 1 Timothy 3:2, now a bishop must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, sensible, dignified, hospitable, and an apt teacher. And so, we find ourselves from time to time picking bishops who do not meet the standard of 1 Timothy 3:12, and
the Episcopal Church probably
very
one bishop out of one serving bishop out of how many 100 meet that standard. But,
well, the sexual thing is a real big issue with me because I remember when I joined my first Episcopal church, 1990, in St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Huntsville, Alabama. Robin Rao was the rector, and he had started like a week before Jill and I arrived. And when I had my first meeting in his office, the door was off. His office said, what's going on? He said, well, I just started here. That door has no window on it. I'm not going to meet with any women in this room, counseling them, without a large window on my door. That does, I guess, makes sense. Come to Christ Church, Watertown. Alan Benedict was the rector, or he got hired on the rector. And second weekend, this door has no window on it. I'm not going to read it here. You're like, oh, what? Is it really a big deal? It was such a big deal to him that he trained up women counselors to be, whenever he met with a woman parishioner, he had another woman in the room with him as a counselor. And I'm like, okay, it's a big deal. 20 years later, it's still, I'm in the news. It is a real big deal, George. It will take down a rector. It will take down a bishop. It will take down an archbishop. Mm-hmm. So there you go. On to our next story. The Ruch trial has ended, George.
The trial of Stuart Ruch for misconduct has ended. And Ian from the Washington Post has written another article, which he spent about a year putting together on that trial process. Mm-hmm. We were not quoted in that one, thank goodness, because it is savage.
That was a hit piece.
That was a hit piece against Stuart Ruch. I mean, no.
Yeah.
If all you know about the trial is from that article, you would basically be voting for Ruch to be in prison, not just defrocked or deposed.
Yeah, that was kind of one-sided.
But, the ACNA, Washington Post has got to sell newspapers. Mm-hmm. And so a decision's expected in December. Ruch, before the Post article came out, warned everybody in his diocese about the hits coming. We posted his little letter on AI. And sure enough, it came. And my goodness. It's hopefully bad things happen in threes, and Ruch, Jones, Wood, that's the three. And now we'll have some good times.
Yeah. We shall see. All right, let's move on to other news we got here. Reactions. We mentioned last time that GAFCON had nuked the Anglican Communion. We got a lot of good viewership on that, and we now have reactions from around the world as the Anglican Communion and its provinces have responded. What's going on, George?
Well, we had the October 16th Martyrs' Day statement from GAFCON forming the World Anglican Communion and rejecting the current instruments of communion. And it was signed under the name of Laurent Mabanda on behalf of the GAFCON Primates Council. Now, who are the members of the GAFCON Primates Council? The Primates Council consists of the leaders of Rwanda, Congo, South Sudan, Uganda, Nigeria, Myanmar, Kenya, Alexandria, Chile, Brazil, the ACNA, as well as the Reformed Evangelical Anglican Church in South Africa, Ruch, used to be called the Church of England in South Africa. There have been no disavowals from any GAFCON primates. Now, some have been very quiet. The Jackson Ole Sapit of Kenya has not said a word. Why is that? Well, he has some dioceses that are in the pocket of 815 in Trinity Wall Street that are funded heavily by the Episcopal Church. And he doesn't have the authority that some other archbishops have to basically chastise dissenters. So the Episcopal News Service ran an article basically saying, this is a flash in the pan, only Mabanda's behind it. No, all the GAFCON primates are behind it, because none of them have said that they're not. And there's been plenty enough time for anybody who is uneasy with it to hem and haw and put up their statement. So, there were 12 people who put this together and in the room, and Rwanda, Nigeria, ACNA, Brazil, were in serving primates in the room when it was put together. Kazimba has since given a ringing endorsement of it, and as of some of the others. Now, the Global South Fellowship of Anglicans has been keeping quiet. They had their sort of nose put out of joint because the staff weren't consulted. But South Sudan, Alexandria, for instance, are on both the GAFCON Primates Council and in the leadership of the Global South Fellowship of Anglicans. Singapore is the heavy hitter there. They're keeping quiet because they are quite synodical in the sense that they're not going to let their archbishops make a decision for the province. The province is going to make the decision for the province. So theirs is an argument over process, not over the right or wrong of the statement. Singapore has issued a statement rejecting the Malali consecration, saying basically, do better next time, Church of England. But they've not jumped on the bandwagon of publicly saying we're out the door. Now, there's a lot of, Tanzania, for instance, that's a divided province. Mm-hmm. The primate is pro the instruments of communion. And there's a major faction that's opposed to it. And then there's a third faction that's, basically there are three groups: high church, low church, and tech affiliated. And that province is going to split one day into three parts because they just do not get on.
Never have. Yeah.
Church of Ireland's evangelical leaders, Belfast, the two bishops in Belfast, are all for it. And they're basically the majority of Church of Ireland worshippers. But the two archbishops, Armagh and Dublin, said, no, we're still buddy-buddy with the Church of England. The Pakistani bishops raised concerns about Malali's theology. They were quite clear to say, we're not talking about her being a woman that's the problem. We're talking about that she's a heretic is the problem. Now, Stephen Cottrell, the Archbishop of York, was on the BBC4 Sunday program, says, oh, this is all overblown. Do you remember the movie Animal House where Kevin Bacon
all is well.
Yes.
No panic.
Well, Cottrell is reenacting that status. And of course, nobody believes him. This is all overblown. It's not overblown. It's just it's finally the public statements are catching up to the facts on the ground. Yeah. Interesting statements, though, like out of Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been a major supporter of the Compass Rose Society. Mm-hmm. It's been a major supporter of the ACC and all this and that. And they've put out a statement saying we need to pray. Ooh. Not a statement saying, hooray for Sarah Malali. Mm-hmm. And they don't criticize her directly, but this is from, I hate to put it in this way, but in a Chinese way, in a polite Chinese way, this is a smack at Sarah Malali, and Jamaica, which again is a liberal diocese in a conservative province, is saying, we need to pray about this. We need to pray for unity. We need to pray that these problems overcome. So people that should automatically be on board aren't. Central Africa is divided. Malawi's for it. Zambia is against it. Zimbabwe is so screwed up, they don't even know what's happening. The Indian Ocean, Madagascar's pro. Mauritius and Seychelles are against GAFCON. Sudan's going through a civil war, and, when you don't know whether you've got food for dinner or whether whether you have to flee from the warring armies, this is really not a big issue for them. Mm-hmm. Ghana, West Africa, has many bishops that are pro this statement, but the way they work is that they count heads before they issue statements. So they have rejected gay marriage. They have rejected they've rejected the woke agenda, but they haven't rejected the Anglican Communion yet because they're not all on the same page.
Well, now does the Anglican Communion through Canterbury offer the clout it used to offer now that we're changing the gender role of the Archbishop of Canterbury? When Rowan Williams walked around, he walked around with the clout of the office. Justin Welby did for the first half of his tenure. But I don't see any clout now in Canterbury, and I see that in the responses here, especially from Hong Kong. Somebody who lived off that clout.
Yeah. Kevin, you and I are of an age when we remember Margaret Thatcher. So clout isn't so much related to
gender. Nope.
Margaret Thatcher had much more clout than John Major ever did, for instance.
Yeah.
So it's the person occupying the office. And Malala is both a woman and a non-entity. And if you're Hong Kong, you want a strong, you want somebody like, Rowan Williams or George Carey, who would be willing to basically upbraid the Chinese Communist Party in your half and know that they would march into the Prime Minister's office in London and say, look, you've got to do this, 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 and this. They know Sarah Malala is not going to do that. And they know that the Keir Starmer government wouldn't listen to her even if she did. So they've got to, the Hong Kong church, for instance, has to find a way to maneuver between loyal to the leaders, the government, their government's now in Peking, Beijing.
That's right.
And at the same time, loyal to the gospel. On mainland China, the church is under tremendous pressure and attack. It's clergy. We've reported 2 episodes ago, about the roundups of clergy and the crackdown on Protestant Christians, about the Chinese government appointing more bishops without approval for the Catholic Church. So it's like being a Sudanese bishop. Yes, this is a church interest, but I've got something happening in my country right now that is a little more pressing on my mind. Mm-hmm. And then let's go even farther to the periphery. Melanesia, which is the Solomon Islands, Bangladesh, Papua New Guinea, they're a soft yes for the GAFCON statement, while Korea and Japan are soft no's for the GAFCON statement. So we're early days yet, but what I can say with absolute conviction is Cottrell's don't panic, there's nothing to see here, folks, move along. That's the one thing I can say with certainty is untrue.
I think that's also the big disappointment of the last 2 weeks here in the GAFCON world, is having the world focus on the Steve Wood story and not on the GAFCON story. This new global Anglican Communion is off to a great start as far as having international support, and nobody except maybe the Episcopal Church, the Canadian Church, and the Church of England offering any defense against it. So, I don't know.
It hurts. It hurts. It's unfair, but it hurts having Steve Wood being one of the authors of this. He was in Sydney when it was written. He participated in its drafting. And you damn well better believe that this will be raised at a certain time by the enemies of GAFCON. That, you gotta...
Well, we're assuming he's innocent now, but if found guilty, this would certainly be raised. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... Incredible. George, somehow we put another 55 minutes on tape talking about the news around the communion. I used to think Anglicanism was boring when I was an Episcopalian. Not so boring anymore. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 939 of Anglican Unscripted.